You hear me now? Mega live, going live every week. Fresh. Mega live. Keep it real, wherever you are, we won't be far. See you there.
And with a little introduction, then welcome to the last day of July, a hot July, both here in Denmark and I know also over in UK. Welcome to this LinkedIn Live show. Today we have super interesting guest. Kevin will introduce you guys in a second. I just want to reflect a little bit before we hit into this episode today, because as Kevin and also the rest of you probably know, I was raised and born in this industry in contact centers and started up. I remember back in the days when I was 17 years old. Kevin, you and me just talked about going by my old call center a couple of weeks back where you were in Copenhagen. That was where I started. And I remember we started with a piece of paper list with phone numbers on, and then a mobile phone, and then there was no mobile. It was like one of those phones. And then developing over time, seeing dialer systems coming, seeing AI solutions coming, also more compliant regulations around the whole industry. So from when I grew up in it to now, a lot of things have happened. And one of the things that I love about this episode today is also to talk a little bit about readiness. How do you become ready to be compliant enough in a multi-contact center where you're also going to introduce voice and payment solutions, etc. So with that said, welcome to today's LinkedIn Live episode. Kevin, Toby, and Sam, nice to have you. Kevin, kick it off.
Welcome everybody today. So I'm going to give Toby and Sam a chance to introduce themselves. Probably not as long as Simon, as Martin's gone through again. Particularly as several have heard the story before. But without further ado, we've got some great guests on today from IPI Integration. We've been doing some great work, and I've been involved in some events with Toby and Sam this year around not only vulnerability, but the whole area around of how we connect ecosystems together. So Toby, if I can fire to you first, a little bit of background about you, IPI Integration, and then over to Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Nice to meet you, everybody. Toby Mason, work here at IPI Integration. I'm the Strategic Alliance Director, so I manage all of our partners, consultants, and really all of our relationships. So yeah, I've been here 11 years. I've been around the CCaaS space for, I was speaking to someone the other day, I think it was 32 years. So yeah, still got a bit of colour in my hair, but yeah, nice to be here today. Thanks for the invite. Over to you, Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Toby, and thanks for having us, gents. I reckon we could do another 30 seconds on the intro song. I love it. But yeah, really happy to be on today and looking forward to the discussion. So yeah, I'm Sam Grant. I work with Toby at IPI Integration. I've been at IPI for just over 5 years now, working within the CX and contact center space over the last 8 years. My role is kind of right at the front end from a commercial and consulting standpoint, so helping organizations leverage all of the exciting benefits that technology can bring them within their operation, and helping them, I guess, navigate some of the challenges that we're probably going to talk about today in terms of compliance, operational readiness, and cutting through a lot of the noise that you hear in the market.
Yeah, I think that is very topical, Sam. So I think we are going to come back and revisit in a minute the whole area of operational readiness, which is a sort of segue into some of the research you've been doing with a partner recently. I'm going to come on to that in a minute. And if I take it from a sort of bloke in a pub view, the report you produce suggests that executive teams are overconfident in their readiness for things like the consumer duty, vulnerability and the like. But the evidence requirements probably lagging a little bit behind. I might be being a bit disingenuous there, but Toby, over to you to put that into perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know there's overconfidence. There is a genuine intent there, and a sort of desire for operational awareness and yeah, the review of sort of policies and frameworks. But I think you touched on it there. There is a stark difference between being aware, having that intent, but actually being able to evidence those outcomes. So that's really what's keeping us very busy at the moment. So when the sort of question around evidence is needed, can you actually demonstrate what's happened with these customer interactions, the decisions that were made, and outcomes that you're looking to achieve? So yeah, that's really what we're helping organizations.
I've just got your exec summary up, which says 98% of leaders believe they're ready for increased FCA scrutiny, but only 25% have evidence that automatically logs, search, and is readily accessible. So there does seem to be a bit of a gap. I don't know if I throw that to Sam with some of his work he does, where he is at the coalface, consulting with people, maybe picking up the pieces of some projects involving AI that may have started that then need to be sort of reset.
Yeah, to Toby's point, I think the kicker here is about evidencing it. It's not about kind of defining a process anymore or walking through a kind of design flow of how you'll deal with a particular scenario. It's all about, you know, what you can prove is happening and has happened historically. And I think the key point that we make to a lot of organizations when we're supporting them sort of navigate these challenges is that if proving a kind of fair customer outcome, as an example, still relies on a lot of manual effort, yes, you might have a process there, but you're probably not as operationally ready as you might like to think. And that's the biggest challenge for organizations. And I think that's where you've got that kind of that gap at the minute between leadership and kind of, I guess, the operation.
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting week. You know, the FCA's sort of bombarded us with communications around the various cross-cutting roles, one of which is outcome monitoring. And I think, Martin, if I bring you in on this one here, it's the difference between just gathering data for whatever purpose versus evidencing continuous improvement. And that's a key philosophy, I think, for Mega, where you're doing a delivery project, knowing what the starting point is and knowing whether you are having an impact, particularly with something as probably, you know, at the moment, sometimes emotive as AI adoption, use of voice bots.
I think it was like you read my mind when Sam was talking also about when you're saying you need to evidence, you need to document what did you do in those different situations. And I have flipped it around from already many years ago. That's also what you said, Kevin, a part of our narrative today is what do you want to use that information for? And so for me, it's not about, I also hear a lot, but we need to evidence now, we need to document that, we need to do X, Y, Z because some regulator or somebody else would demand of us that we need to do that. For me, it's a logical step. It's logical if you understand your data, if you understand the rules, if you understand vulnerability, if you understand how to communicate to the right kind of client in the circumstances they are in. This is where you will solve the other big problem that all our clients, all the ones that I talk with, is we have lower contact rates normally, we have lower connection rates, people are not picking up the phone as they were used to, people are not responding to email. But for me, that doesn't come down to a problem that, it came down to we don't know the client how to communicate to that client. And I think the whole thing that you now need to evidence and structure and etc., you should use that information even in your outreach, if it's an inbound call, it's an outbound call. If you know those things, this is how you should proper communicate around the client situation, especially in today's environment, financial environment. So we use it a lot just to create actually people who want to engage with us because we understand the situation. It doesn't matter if it's an AI voice agent or if it's a human, it's the same, but that's how I see it. So I don't think you should complain about it. I think you should use it. We talked, Kevin, 2 years ago, priority service registration. Is it nice for the people? Is it annoying for the companies? Is that why they don't do it in a proper level? But if they do it, could they use that information to actually engage and do a better business? That's how I look at it.
I mean, that's a very interesting point. Yesterday, I sat on a group where we had the chance to speak to Ofgem, the regulator for energy providers, and their proposal, their consultation, which is open, about moving from a rule-based regulator to an outcome-focused regulator, and listening to many of the consumer groups on there who would prefer to have a rule-based approach because it's there in black and white, thou shalt do this, but a closer alignment to the FCA approach, which is, for most firms, they're in their third year of duty reporting, and it's very timely today. Today is the deadline for that. So Toby, just coming back to you as partnership director, how important the ecosystems are together when you're involved, often gluing it all together with partners potentially like MEGA or Vulnerability Registration Service. What's your approach in doing this, taking it to market, mindful that each of the sectors, and you work with a number of big water, energy and other financial service firms, how you blend that in or merge that into your approach to market?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely pivotal. I mean, in the introduction there, we've earned our sort of crust over the years on sort of CCAS contact center, and now very much it's a multi-system. There's lots of integrations, and the reliance now that we have on our partners, and as you say, Kev, the ecosystem type approach, is so necessary. Just simply because, as you said, we've got a lot of skill set. Got to put myself on the other side of the fence in the client shoes, having resource across all the different disciplines, all the different systems. You need that sort of coordinated type approach. So from our perspective, yes, collaboration is key. Delighted to sort of starting to now be working with MEGA. So you've been working with yourself, Kevin, for a long time, but actually the introduction to a number of partners from the relationship that's born out of MEGA has been really sort of insightful and useful in terms of our engagements. And yet across the piece, we very much take a sort of consultative angle, and we've developed this sort of practical intelligence type framework now that we engage with our clients on, involving our partners. So segmenting out the approach and trying to work at the right pace with the client and helping their team sort of navigate through and getting the most out of their technology, their people, their processes. So yeah, the ecosystem we see very much as a way forward. It's very busy in my area, and yeah, we're seeing new partners coming to the fore all the time. So it's working collaboratively with those, and yeah, I think it's just going to grow and grow and grow.
So I think questions, Martin and Sam, now really. The challenge when you're at the coalface, what are you seeing when you look at the as-is situation when you're dealing with clients at the moment, and sometimes going back to the report, that their view of their state of readiness is slightly different from what you observe when you first go in? How do you handle that diplomatically and take that forward and potentially turn around something that may be destined not to have a good outcome into one that does? Sam, you first.
Yeah, I think the key word is outcome, right? And Martin sort of alluded to it before, but I think we can often maybe overcomplicate things, especially where compliance and regulation is involved. And Kevin, you talked to the kind of the FCA, focus around being more kind of outcome oriented. Being rules based gives us, black and white, no ambiguity around what we need to be doing. So it's almost a bit of a kind of safety blanket. But really, we talk about vulnerability, good customer outcomes, really it's just another form of personalization, just a really, really important one. And organizations have been looking to deliver personalization in their kind of CX operation for, as long as these things have existed. And the great benefits of AI and data enable you to do that at scale now. So I think sometimes just boiling things down a little bit more and focusing on, well, what is it that we're trying to achieve here and how can we piece that together is probably one of the most important starting points. So we focus a lot on that at the outset when we're doing the kind of operational readiness engagement that we support clients with. And then the other bit is around actually the steps in the process to get to that outcome. So not only once you've got an outcome defined and you kind of got the technology supporting that and the processes supporting that, to then move into operationalizing it. Actually, way before that, you see all of these statistics around, I think it's MIT that kind of labeled the most frightening stat around 95% of AI pilots, you know, never moving through to production or never delivering P&L impact into the business. And I'm sure there's a large proportion of those that have been blocked when kind of looking to flip to production due to some kind of compliance or regulatory reason. So for us, AI governance and thinking around that and not being afraid to kind of dive straight into that at the outset is also, you know, really critical. So those are kind of two things that work together: AI governance and then the operational readiness element as well. But I think they're intrinsically linked.
I think that echoes your view, Martin. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, would, because I think Sam is spot on that. There is the whole part coming in. How do you get the different companies? It's not easy, but it's not so difficult to get a buy-in from an operation manager. They see the benefit. They want to move forward. It worked in a pilot. It worked in a demo environment, etc. So they want to move forward. Then you come to compliance, infosec teams, all of that. That's one side. When you then get through that, that's where I think IPI are onto something really valuable, and why I would recommend clients to use a company like that in the structure in the next phase, because the next phase is about, and that's where the blockers are. Do the company have internal resources? Do they have enough knowledge to actually combine the ecosystem together? Because all clients, utilities, financial services, debt collection, etc., they have self-service portal, they have CCaaS systems, they have collection platforms. Some of them have multiple. How do you bind it all together, and how do you then implement the rules, all the steps that need to be there? So that the one thing is, does it die in that big process afterward? Are there internal resources? And it becomes more and more complex when it moves from UK to UK, Europe, UK, US, Canada, etc., different rules and regulations. So there is a big thing of why they stall these projects out there, because when it's not integrated properly together, when the infrastructure is not working perfectly together, when the data flows are not floating in together from different systems with the right rules around them, etc., then these project dies afterwards, because it doesn't work properly if it's not infrastructured correctly together. So I see those two big gaps where it looks easier on a drawing, on a plan, that is when it comes out to operational. So I both see the challenges before we go live, but also after we go live, because then the whole optimization periods come, and the success are lying in the small gaps, and that's not easy to go around with. So that's what I see out there also.
I'm going to put the link to the report from IPI Integration into the chat afterwards, because the recording will be immediately available, and just shift focus a little bit around ecosystems, but around payment services. Because I think in the June newsletter, we featured a picture of Sam, Toby, you, Martin, and Dan Thompson from Acquired sat outside a pub. I think it was very hot on the day, so there was a legitimate reason.
It was essential, hydration.
Let's talk a little bit about payment services, the PCI piece, before I exhaust all my knowledge in that space around it. Tobes, if I can come across to you, where you see directions of travel with open banking now being measured in billions of transactions for the first time.
Yeah, thanks, Kev. I mean, from our perspective, we've been working in and around sort of payment solutions for the last sort of 15 years or so, and the landscape has changed. But yeah, it's probably one of the bigger growth areas within IPI. Say in the first phasing, this is where we're working in conjunction with Martin and the team at MEGA. But yeah, I mean, drawing it back with the ecosystem approach, and the likes of Dan at Acquired, Debtstream, we met with earlier this week. It all has that interconnect side of things, and there isn't a one size fits all. So we've had to evolve. We've had to sort of reshape different types of solutions to meet different sort of use cases and demands from our clients. But it's a growing, changing landscape. But from our perspective, sorry, Mark.
No, but Toby, I just want to tap into that because I think that that's actually when it comes down to your partnership with Vulnerable Registration Service, when it comes down to the partnership with us, it actually makes a very good view on what the topic is also today. When you begin to feed that information in, when you know something about a client, also their behavior. One thing is they're financially struggling, if they are vulnerable, what is the financial balance? What is the way that they prefer to pay normally? What is the segment of client? Are they older? Are they younger? Where are they from in the world? And based on those information, that's also when we are creating better and smoother customer journeys, is of course also
Agreed.
for people in the payout. That was why we actually got engaged, because today we trigger SMS or trigger a debt stream port or something else, because some clients prefer to do it like that. But other clients prefer to do it not like that, prefer just to give it by phone. Some prefer a credit card, some prefer an Apple payout, some prefer a Google Pay, some prefer different things. And it's all about not guessing those things down the line, while back to why I think infrastructure should be integrated and why important knowledge as the VRS, etc., is important to know, and also understanding the client's behavior, and based on that, give them the best outcome. As Sam said, it's about the outcome in the end.
So let's bring Sam back in. So
yeah,
see what he's seeing at the front line again. So how do consumer preferences start coming into play now, particularly with the advent of sort of AI assistants and the like, different choices around payment methods, engagement, where you're meant to have a consistent customer journey, but the dynamics of it could be you want to engage through WhatsApp and you want to do something else through a different medium. So how is that sort of matrix approach, Sam, coming into play, and things you're seeing now where you've got to be multi-dimensional, omni-channels really got to come to fruition rather than it being just a series of bolt-on type integrations on it into an old-fashioned CRM or CCaaS platform?
Yeah, I think the key part there is choice, right? Customers want choice. Organizations have been trying to provide customers with choice for a long time, and a lot of organizations have done a really solid job at that. The bit where we often find challenges is around the consistency within that choice. So, you know, whether that's customers having a lack of consistency in terms of the outcome that they're getting by moving from a digital channel through to a voice-based channel. The same is kind of there from a payment standpoint, right? I think if you can offer more ways for customers to make payment, then you're likely to start, you know, recovering more in a recovery scenario, converting more in a sales scenario. So, you know, it's quite straightforward, but the challenge there is around, yeah, how can we make that process easy? How can we make it aligned to our kind of wider strategic objectives around how we deal with customers and the kind of customer journey piece? And again, that you know, as Toby said at the start, we've been working within the kind of CX space for 25 years, but probably for 20 years of that have been facing this challenge of CX and compliance not typically being happy bedfellows, right? So it's trying to break down some of those barriers, support the customer, support your ability to deliver an efficient operation, and not cause friction in between. So yeah,
I'm going to fly a kite here now, Sam, and I think I gave you a heads up on this beforehand. If you were given the opportunity that there is, let's say, a vulnerability and affordability passport in the market where data physically doesn't have to move, you've got different pods with things like the VRS, IE Hub, client CRM data, a priority service register, that on that passport, it provides security around scams, fraud, but it also contains the client's communication preferences, payment preferences, and you could deliver that into the hands of a bot, a voice, a human agent, or into as an API into an automated process. What would you think about that, and how would you go about thinking about, you know, committing that and looking at that in terms of a horizon scan with your clients, were that to evolve and move from pilot to scaled in, as was presented at the VRS conference, where the regulators presented at the same venue that I think Toby was at as well, because I think he was exhibiting.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, yeah, customers generally there's a willingness there for them to provide access to data. And that's often, you know, the biggest challenge for an organization is how can we move data in a secure manner? How can we make sure that there's guardrails in place, but how we're utilizing that data to provide, you know, the right outcome for our customers. And, you know, whether you look at it in the most simple terms, in terms of how many times when we go on a website, if every time we have to accept cookies, right? Most people do, they won't even read up on it. We're willing to give access to our data if we think that it's going to deliver some kind of improved outcome. You know, access to my data means that you should understand who I am, my preferences, any challenges that I might have, any vulnerabilities, and then, you know, deliver a better level of service to me based on that data. So yeah, I think customers are willing, organizations want the data and want to use it. Again, you kind of got to break down the barriers that sit in between that. So I think the vulnerability passport and this, you know, talk around affordability passport, I think these are great concepts, because it just gives, you know, customers and organizations the ability to make informed decisions around how to deal with people.
And Sam, I think one thing, and I agree. I think because the challenge is not the consumer, that they don't want to give it, or they don't want to. We are getting more and more used to that, so it's out there. And I think it's good that you give the power back, because one of the problems, Kevin, especially in the UK market, is you have systems, or you have so many different kind of systems and portals and places where you can register all kind of things. So to see solutions coming together where it's the consumer, where you can get and give access to all kind of information. And I'm 100% also, I see it works when you use that actually to communicate. So that's actually one of the biggest areas to get people to get on the phone to communicate with you. If you prepare them, if you give them access to example an IHOP link where you can fill in your information, and knowing that you don't need to do it again. You maybe need to update it here and there, but you don't need to do it again. And let's be honest, in a situation where it's about debt collection, financial problems, or vulnerabilities, the clients don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Even I'm not in that segment, but I don't want to do that. So it's out there. So I think it's really valuable that there's coming some solutions now where you give the customer that power.
I'm going to give Toby 30 seconds. We're getting towards the end now. On the other side of it, which is the client side of it, where people don't necessarily want to see their data leaving their secure environment, the type of role of a systems integrator like yourselves, Toby, where you may want to host that pod so that the whole environment is super secure. But do you see that as a major element of your role as IP integration in trying to give you know, big clients the trust that their data is safe, but to participate in a tell us once type environment, where the security and the infrastructure and the comfort is in there, that gives that peace of mind?
Yeah, absolutely, Kev. I mean, we you only need to see the attendance at the VRS event. We've obviously done a vulnerability seminar with yourself, having, as Sam says, having the guardrails, working alongside our clients to support them around, if it's a VRS integration or whatever, is pivotal. So from our side, it's pretty straightforward. As you said, we've been doing a lot of work with the VRS team, and we see it as a massive growth area, really, for us. And actually, for the end user, it's great, because, as we say, the moving and sharing of data is a pain for the end user, for the consumer. So if we can bring it all together with the vulnerability passport, the VRS team, lock that down within the client side, work with the client teams. Say from our respect, it's another piece of the jigsaw that needs to be addressed. And from our perspective, it all comes into that operational readiness piece. So we're looking at it at the outset now with our clients, and making sure that awareness is there and they've got processes in place to look at it and get it sorted.
We've got a couple of minutes left. I'm going to give an unadulterated plug to our face-to-face event on the 24th of September in Stratford. I think you join us, Toby and Sam, I think, for that event with other partners. Just one final comment from both of you, really, Sam and Toby, before I hand back to Martin, and he'll talk about some things that are coming on the horizon.
The point for me, we've talked to focus on operational readiness, obviously. Definitely have a read of the white paper for people who are listening. Kevin's going to share that after. The other point would be quite simply have the left hand talking to the right hand. And that's why we focus so much on working with the right, partners across your tech ecosystem, because it's key to break some of these challenges down.
Yeah, and from my side, thanks for the invite, Kev. Love to speak to some of the attendees today and sort of flesh out further operational readiness and everything that we've covered in the call today. But thanks for the opportunity to present today.
Martin, the floor is yours.
The floor is me for the last minute. I just want to say here with a little afterburner, thank you for Sam and Toby to joining us today. We are having a big collaboration with IP Integration coming up, both on payment, also on other side. I will highly recommend to look at a company like that when you're going to implement solutions like my solutions, where it's not lying in the start, it's lying in the aftercare, in the onboarding, in the integration system. I'm looking forward to explain a lot more about the collaboration with IPI Integration as we go. A little shout out for here in the last minute here, next LinkedIn live show are moving for the first time to the North America and Canadian market, where we the 7th of August at 8 o'clock in the evening, Danish time, 7 o'clock in the evening, UK time, and a lot of other times, depending on where in North America you are, will be posted out today. We will have a guest called Simon Howard, one of the most prominent figures in the Canadian market. Join us on next LinkedIn Live session for the 7th of August. With that said, I want to go sailing now with my family. I didn't have a lot of holidays, so probably a couple of LinkedIn posts later today from the sea. I wish you all a fantastic Friday and a happy weekend.
Issuing a warning in Copenhagen.
You are. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. Sam and Toby, thank you for joining this session today.
Thanks,
Thank you, guys.